Hello, in this part we're going to use world composition. The world composition is a tool from Unreal, and it allows us then to make bigger worlds and to manage them as well. Now here we're going to start in Unreal. So here I have my Unreal project, and we previously generated this terrain. So we had some basic prop scattering and so on. So now I want to use world composition in here. There are a few things I want to do first. And I want to have actually a better folder structure in my project. So currently I just have a simple folder structure, content, tutorial scene, and that's it. So I want to create a new folder where I'm actually going to save all my maps. So maps of the desert, for example. So in here will contain all my maps. I will also, currently I'm using the PGG setup map, and I want to move that map into this folder as well. So this is a better structure now. Now in here, we're now going to first of all enable world composition, because again this is a feature from Unreal. So we're going to go to world settings, and in world settings there is a toggle called enable world composition. So we're going to click this on, and now we're ready. So that's just important that it is on, nothing more. Furthermore, what will be useful as well is the level menu here. So we have the level tab. So if you don't have all these menus open, you can always find them back here again in the window. What will later then also be useful is we can here summon a world composition. So if at the moment, if I load that, you see that nothing is here. So we don't have any world composition maps or so on. So it's just an empty view here. So what we're going to do is, in here I have 16 different terrains. So if I click on this terrain, you can see that this is a small part. And we're going to save this as a scene. So we're going to save this out as one single scene file. So in the end, when I press the bake button, we will have 16 new maps, and we will load the new maps in here in this level menu here. Now let's jump into Houdini. Now we are here back again in Houdini, and we're gonna use the world composition node. So this is from lab tools. So we can just type in world composition, and we should see a lab world composition node. So this will do everything for you, so you don't have to manually create certain attributes and so on. So the first input here is the landscape or my height field. So from here, then the second input is an instance. So these are my instances. And there is also a third input for a new geometry you created. So this will then also be my new output. And we don't need that merge node, so this will sort of also merge them together nicely. Now in here, there are a few settings we need to adjust. So first thing here, we have custom tile number. So by default, it will automatically look at the attribute called tile. So if I would open my attributes here, so normally if I would focus on the output of my terrain, for example, we should be able to see a tile number here. So it will automatically search for that number. But if you don't have that, you can always just use custom tile, and then we can ask the tile parameter. So you can just say here channel, then I would like to have the tile number here. And that will also probably return then number 7. So in case you are having multiple height maps in your scene or height fields, then you should disable this and try to include a tile attribute on each of the different terrains. So by default, the tile attribute comes from all the way at the top here from the split node. So if I hold my mouse button, middle mouse button here, you will see that this will include the tile number here. The original creation of this value comes from the split node. And then we can also enable here the proxies. And we also need to set a level path here. So this is where I want to save out my maps. So again, a great way to easily get the path is also to right click, copy a reference, and then we paste the reference in here. And we don't need the full part here, we only need game, tutorial, my desert, and then furthermore the map name. So I don't need that fully. So I'm going to extract only this part, and we can delete the other part here, then paste it back. So now we also need to include the name. So this will be the output of the name. So we can take something like tutorial terrain and then underscore bracket style. So this will sort of reference to the tile number. So the tile number that we set here. So this will then include tile numbers. Now, furthermore, we also have some settings to set the material. So if you have not done that yet, it's great to set that here now as well. Then we can also isolate different layers. So that's something I've also already done, but in case you are exporting multiple height layers. So you can see over here that currently I'm exporting the height, the layer 1, layer 2, and a mask. So if you have a lot of different layers here, I recommend you like filtering and isolating only the things you need. So if I would enable this, I would only see here my height as output. So either you can use a blast node, or you can do that in this node here as well. Then further we have some few visualizers. So this will just color the tile. So if everything is the same color, that's good. So if you have multiple height field maps in here, you should see multiple colors that represent each different tile. You can also visualize instances. So this will create some geometry guides around the instances, so they all work. And we also have here isolating a certain tile. So this is again, if you are working with multiple tiles in the scene, you can then isolate a specific tile to double check that. And then of course, make sure you are saving the asset. And let's jump in the PGG network. So this is then my PGG system. We can always like update the parameters. We can also cook it here if you want to be sure that everything is implemented. And you can always then double check the PGG items that it generated. So let me quickly do it here. So again, you can always right click on an item and then view it. Then this menu will pop up here. And in that menu, we will then have our terrain. We can also go to display and we can open a spreadsheet. And this will then contain the attribute information of that piece. So in here, we can then double check attributes if you want to. So if you want to double check instancing or the level path here, so that seems all added correctly. So we are ready now to save this out and go back to Unreal. So here I'm back in Unreal and I want to just rebuild my asset to be sure I have the latest version. Then furthermore, I probably want to get rid of my results that I have in my scene and update the new results. So I'm going to dirty all, and this will just delete everything in my scene. And I'm going to then cook my result now. So now with this new result, only thing left now is to press the bake button here. So notice that we actually have two bake buttons. So one is the default Houdini Engine bake, and we also have a PGG bake button. So in this case, I want to use the PGG bake button. So when I press the bake button, the result we should have is maps being created over here. So press bake now. And indeed, as you can see now, I have all these maps. So we go from 0 to 15, so we have 60 maps. And again, these are exactly the same name that I used in the world composition node. So you can customize also the naming as well. Now, if you go to the level menu here, you should see all these maps loaded by default. So we can select them all, right click and load. As you can see, we have back our map. So we have the same result as before, but now it's in separated maps. So here, for example, if I hide terrain number 4, we can just basically hide the full piece here. Now we have world composition enabled. Now what's also interesting is that if I open the summoned world composition now, we have a nice top-down view here of our map. So this is exactly what I wanted. So now I can actually manage my terrain better. So as you can see, I can click these tiles, and the information right now on the tiles is the position, some more names, and also important is the streaming distance. So right now it's set to 5,000, but you might want to lower this or increase this. So what we're going to do is we're going to make a new layer here with the plus icon, and let's say we want a streaming distance of maybe half of it, 25. So we're going to just call it like stream, let's say 25,000. I'm just going to call it 25k, and I'm going to fill in the value here. So let's create that. And now everything is still using the 5,000, so we have to select everything. So we can just do this, right click, and now we can assign this to my stream layer with 25,000 streaming distance. So if I now go over a tile, we now have this other value. So now let's test the road composition. So I'm going to move here to one of the edges of my terrain here, so on the edge here. So I'm going to press play soon, but I also want this menu open of road composition. So I'm going to zoom out, and currently I'm here. So when I press play, you can see that this works. So you can see that all the gray areas, so if I jump out, all the gray areas are not loaded, and all the areas that are colored are loaded in my current scene. So if I would start walking around in this direction, you can see that slowly it will then load and unload parts of the scene. So we don't have to worry about automatically assigning streaming values or setting streaming volumes to load or unload. So road composition does this for us. So this is out of the box what you get. So you can see this was barely minimal setup to do, and it works really well with the PGG system from Houdini. That was basically it, what I would show you for road composition. So it's not that complex. We built some lab nodes for you, so you can use this. And then in Unreal, we can then use the road composition features and this special road composition menu to manage your terrain, set streaming distance, and so on. So I hope you enjoyed these videos, and thank you for watching.